What is true happiness? The first requirement to discovering what happiness is to discover what happiness isn't. Now this sounds pretty simple, huh? Well, this could prove to be harder than it sounds. We're very adaptable creatures. We can adjust and adapt to most situations, and if stuck in a standstill long enough, we can accept the most unacceptable circumstances to an extent that we can imitate happiness. Here's an example. Let's venture into the mindset of the alcoholic or the addict. And I can do this because I lived in that mind for many years. The alcoholic can slowly and eventually lose his sense of self. And while his or her reality is changing, he may not even recognize the change. He can go from a mansion to a slum without tripping or missing a step. A typical 24 hours in his life may resemble this picture. Monday, he goes to work reeking of booze from a long weekend binge, only to lose his job. He leaves his job, heads to the liquor store to drown his sorrow and feed his resentments towards his boss. He goes home, gets into a fight with his girlfriend, who by this time has had enough and kicks him out. But since he's drunk and belligerent, he refuses to leave, gets arrested, and spends the night in jail. Early Tuesday morning, his codependent girlfriend bails him out of jail, makes up with him, and they head directly to the bar. He's greeted by smiling faces, and people buy him drinks all night. Now, do you think this makes him happy? This may be an extreme example, but if you ask him on Tuesday if he's happy, I bet he will say yes. Or what about the man who has been on his job for 10 years, but for the past 9.5 years, he feels stressed out on a daily basis. He feels overworked, underappreciated, and he constantly fantasizes of leaving and doing something where he feels respected and valued. He has a job that allots him the ability to turn in his lease every 2 years and lease a new car. He can buy pretty much anything he wants. And often he has to execute this benefit to find happiness. The problem is that now he has to buy bigger and better things to continually be happy. And with everything he buys, he finds himself more trapped in his job and is only working to afford his lifestyle and is enslaved by his acquirements. Now, most people would not think he has any reason not to be happy and would love to trade places with him and take on his problems of being able to buy whatever he wants. See, happiness is objectionable, and our personal requirements for experiencing this highly sought-after emotion changes from day to day. So how can we define this type of happiness? Here's a definition I believe is accurate for most of us. Happiness is any pleasant experience over and above the norm. See, the norm for the alcoholic is to spend his money drinking, and trouble is just part of the norm. But people buying him drinks all night is far from the norm. So therefore, it's a pleasant experience over and above the norm, which can be considered happiness. The businessman's norm is not to be appreciated, but to be able to buy whatever he wants, hence, living a lifestyle over and above what's normal for most. Happiness is a state of mind. We've all heard that before. Totally based on our mindset and what your acceptable and unacceptable norm is. But is this really happiness? How do we find and experience real happiness? What does it look like, feel like, taste like? To find it, would it simply be a matter of changing your mindset and your norm? If that's the case, how do we do that? To quote Helen Keller, many people have the wrong idea of what constitutes happiness. Happiness is not attained through self-gratification, but through fidelity to a worthy purpose. And what constitutes a worthy purpose? I think it's a purpose sufficient enough to ground you spiritually, mentally, and physically. So this brings us right back to the beginning. In order to find happiness, we have to first discover what in our life doesn't make us happy. What in our life has nothing to do with our purpose. And most importantly, do we know what our purpose is? So maybe we're wasting our time looking for happiness when we should be looking for a purpose. Until next time, remember, there's no dress rehearsals in this life. It's your life, get to living.